My name is Alara Whitman. I'm 28 years old. And the day I married the love of my life was also the day I finally understood where I stood in my family. It was supposed to be the happiest Saturday of my life, the kind people tell you about in hushed, reverent tones, the kind you imagine when you're 5 years old, draping yourself in old curtains and pretending you're walking down an aisle toward a future that feels warm and safe and certain. And in so many ways, it was beautiful. The white roses lining the pews of Sacred Heart Chapel, the soft echo of string music drifting through the vaulted ceiling, the way my boyfriend, now my husband, Lucas looked at me like I was the only thing anchoring him to the world. But beauty doesn't erase absence. And absence, I learned that day, can be louder than applause. Every few seconds, my eyes betrayed me. They drifted, against my will, to the front left section of the chapel. The seats reserved for my family. Empty. Not one late arrival, not a single hurried shuffle, no whispered apologies, no last-minute excuses. Just rows of untouched programs and smooth, unwrinkled cushions. It felt like spilling red wine on white silk, a slow, spreading stain I couldn't ignore no matter how hard I tried. No one from my family came. Not my parents. Not my younger sister, Maribel. Not my aunt who once told me I was the steady one. Not even Rowan, my best friend since childhood, the woman I'd chosen as my maid of honor, who had promised me, sworn to me, that she would stand beside me no matter what. Instead, every single one of them was at my sister's engagement party. Yes, on the exact same day. Maribel had scheduled her engagement celebration for the same Saturday as my wedding, after knowing my date for 8 months, and my family chose her. It wasn't subtle. Her invitations went out 2 months before my wedding. Thick cardstock, rose gold foil, professional photos of her and her fiancé Ethan laughing on a rooftop downtown like they'd been styled for a luxury magazine. Meanwhile, my invitations, simple, elegant, heartfelt, were met with silence, or worse. My mother texted, "Sweetheart, we'll have to see how that weekend shakes out." My father didn't even bother with words, just a thumbs up emoji, 3 days later. I told myself I was imagining things, that big families get messy, that things overlap, that love doesn't always show up the way you expect. But deep down, I already knew the truth. Maribel had always been the golden child. She got the larger bedroom when we moved to Maple Street, a brand new Honda Civic for her 16th birthday. I got Dad's old pickup, with broken air conditioning and a radio that only worked when it felt like it. She was valedictorian, homecoming queen, the daughter my parents introduced with pride. I was the other one. Reliable, quiet, expected to understand. Still, I believed, naively, that my wedding would be different. 3 weeks before the ceremony, I called my mother to confirm travel plans. She hesitated. "Alara, sweetheart, about the wedding." My stomach dropped. "Maribel's engagement party is the same day," she said gently. "It's going to be really difficult for us to be in 2 places at once." I laughed. I actually laughed because the alternative was breaking. "So, you're not coming?" "Well, Ethan's parents are flying in from overseas. It's such an important moment." "Mom," I whispered, gripping the phone until my hand hurt, "this is my wedding." She sighed like I was being unreasonable. "You'll understand when you have children." I hung up without saying goodbye. I didn't tell Lucas right away. He was in the shower, humming some old song, blissfully unaware that my family had just carved a hollow space into our wedding day. By the time Saturday arrived, the truth had fully settled. Phone calls, apologies, excuses. Rowan called the night before. "Alara, I'm so sorry," she said, "but Maribel's party is kind of a big deal. There are important people there." I said nothing. The next morning, I got ready in a hotel room that should have been filled with laughter and chaos. Instead, it was quiet. Just me and Lucas's sister, Naomi, helping me into my dress. "They're really missing out," she said softly. I smiled. Inside, something broke. The ceremony was perfect. The love was real. The vows were everything. And still, those empty seats never stopped staring back at me. At the reception, as we danced and laughed and tried to pretend this day hadn't been fractured, my phone began to buzz. Once, twice, again. Texts, calls, missed calls piling up like an accusation. And then a message from my cousin Isla. "You won't believe what's happening at Maribel's party. Call me when you can. Don't tell anyone I texted you. This is bad." I stared at the screen as the music played on around me. Something was unraveling. And for the first time all day, my family suddenly needed me. I stepped out onto the terrace with my phone clutched in my hand, the bass from the DJ muffled behind the glass doors. The night air was cool, sharp enough to steady my breathing. Inside, people laughed, glasses clinked. Someone shouted for another round of cake. My wedding was still happening, beautiful and fragile and real, but it felt like it was floating just out of reach. I called Isla back. She answered on the first ring. "Ilara," she whispered, like she was hiding in a closet. "Thank God." "What's going on?" I asked. "Why is everyone calling me?" She exhaled. "It's Maribel's engagement party. It's a disaster." I closed my eyes. A part of me, small and traitorous, felt a flicker of grim relief. What kind of disaster? "Well," Isla said, ticking it off. "The caterer messed up the order. Half the menu never arrived. There's barely any food. The ice sculpture melted because someone forgot to plug in the cooling unit. Guests are complaining." "That's unfortunate," I said, my voice flat. "And Ethan's parents?" she continued. "The ones from overseas?" "Yes." "They never made it. Their flight got canceled because of a storm. They can't get another one until Monday." I leaned against the railing, staring out at the city lights. All of this. Missing my wedding, choosing Maribel over me, for people who weren't even there. "There's more," Isla said quietly. "Mom's panicking. Apparently some of Ethan's business partners were supposed to meet his parents tonight. Important investors. Without them, the whole thing looks awkward, like Maribel threw a very expensive party for herself." I almost laughed. Almost. "And what do they want from me?" I asked. Another pause. "Mom keeps saying you can fix it. She wants you to call that restaurant you used to work at, Riverside Bistro. She thinks they might send emergency catering." I felt something harden in my chest. "Isla," I said slowly, "I'm at my wedding reception." "I know," she said quickly. "I told her that. She's not listening. She keeps saying it's an emergency, that the family reputation is at stake." My phone buzzed again in my hand. Dad, then Mom, then Maribel. Numbers I didn't recognize. 15 missed calls. 20. "Don't answer," Isla said softly. "Please, just enjoy your wedding." I thanked her and hung up. For a moment, I stood there alone, listening to my phone vibrate like an accusation. The same people who couldn't show up for me now demanded my immediate attention. The irony would have been funny if it didn't hurt so much. I turned my phone face down and went back inside. Lucas noticed me immediately. He crossed the room, concern etched into his face. "Hey, what happened?" I showed him the messages, his jaw tightened, not in anger, but something colder, protective. "You don't owe them anything," he said. "I know," I replied, and for the first time, I meant it. We danced, we laughed, we tried to pull ourselves back into the night, but something had shifted. The bubble had popped. My family had found a way to intrude even in their absence. I didn't answer their calls that night, or the next day. Lucas and I left for our honeymoon early the following morning, a small bed and breakfast tucked into the mountains. 3 days of quiet, of pretending the world was smaller and kinder than it actually was. When we came home the following Tuesday, the apartment felt different, quieter, more ours. I checked the mail while Lucas carried our bags upstairs. There was a small package waiting for me. Plain cardboard, my mother's return address. No note, no explanation. Just a jewelry box I recognized instantly. My stomach dropped. It was the box that had once held my great-grandmother's wedding necklace, a delicate piece of pearls and diamonds that had been passed down through generations of women in my family. Great-Grandma Rose had promised it to me when I was 16. She'd clasped it around my neck during a Christmas gathering and smiled like she was letting me in on a secret. "This is for your wedding day," she'd said. "It's been waiting for the right bride." When she passed away, the necklace went to my mother for safekeeping. I'd asked about it during my engagement. She'd said she wanted to surprise me the morning of the wedding. That morning never came. I carried the box upstairs with trembling hands. Lucas watched from the doorway as I opened it. Empty, except for a small folded note in my mother's handwriting. "Thought you should have the box for sentimental reasons. The necklace was damaged in storage. So sorry, love. Mom." I read it 3 times. Damaged in storage. The necklace had been immaculate every time I'd seen it. Rose had taken meticulous care of her jewelry. My mother had always been obsessive about storage. This wasn't an accident. I called Isla. "Did you see Maribel wearing any jewelry at the engagement party?" I asked. The silence on the other end stretched too long. "Oh, Ilara," she said quietly. "Please tell me Mom didn't." "Did she?" I pressed. "Yes," Isla admitted. "Maribel wore a vintage pearl and diamond necklace. She kept talking about how it was a family heirloom. She posted photos, a lot of them." I felt the room tilt. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I opened my laptop. There it was, Maribel's social media page. 15 photos, her glowing, Ethan's arm around her, and my great-grandmother's necklace shining against her throat. Feeling so blessed to carry on our family legacy, the caption read, honored to be its next guardian. Something inside me went still. I didn't call my mother. I didn't confront Maribel. Instead, I started saving screenshots. Every post, every caption, the empty jewelry box, the note. Isla sent me photos from the party. Proof, undeniable and clear. That was the moment I stopped reacting and started planning. I didn't sleep much that night. Lucas fell asleep quickly beside me, his arm draped over my waist, like a quiet promise that I wasn't alone in this anymore. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my head, the empty pews, the buzzing phone, the cardboard box sitting on the kitchen counter like a taunt. Damaged in storage. The lie was almost insulting in its laziness. By morning, the initial shock had hardened into something sharper. Not rage, not grief. Clarity. My family hadn't just forgotten me. They hadn't been careless or overwhelmed or momentarily thoughtless. They had made deliberate choices again and again, each one telling me exactly where I ranked. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and I documented everything. I created a folder and labeled it simply, Rose Necklace. Screenshots of Maribel's Instagram posts, timestamps visible, captions intact. Photos Isla sent me from the engagement party, zoomed in until there was no denying the pearls, the clasp, the exact diamond placement I knew by heart. A photo of the empty jewelry box, a scan of my mother's note. I even pulled out the old family video from Christmas when I was 16, the one where great-grandma Rose fastened the necklace around my neck. Her voice was shaky but clear. "This is yours, Alara," she said in the video, "for your wedding day." I backed everything up twice. Lucas watched quietly from across the room. "You're not going to call them," he said, not a question. "No," I replied. "That's what they expect." He nodded. "Then what are you going to do?" I looked at the screen, at the proof laid out neatly in front of me. "I'm going to stop letting them define the terms." The weeks that followed were quiet. Too quiet. My mother didn't call. Neither did my father. Maribel blocked me on social media. Not that it mattered. Rowan never reached out again. It was as if I'd been erased the moment I stopped reacting. And for the first time in my life, I didn't chase them to fill the silence. Instead, I poured everything into my work. I'd been at Hawthorne Strategies for years, reliable but overlooked, the kind of employee managers trust but don't celebrate. After the wedding, something shifted. I stopped volunteering for safe projects and started claiming the difficult ones, the clients no one wanted, the campaigns everyone thought were doomed. I stayed late, asked sharper questions, took risks. Within 6 months, I landed 3 major accounts back to back. My boss called me into his office one afternoon, disbelief written all over his face. "Ilara," he said, grinning, "I don't know what lit a fire under you, but it's working. I'm promoting you to senior account director." The raise was substantial. Lucas hugged me that night, like he'd been waiting years to do it. "I knew you had this in you," he said. With the extra income, we moved out of the cramped apartment and into a townhouse with sunlight and a small garden out back. I planted roses, white ones, like the ones at my wedding. I started investing, carefully, strategically. One rental property, then another. Meanwhile, Isla kept me updated, quietly, cautiously. Maribel's wedding planning, she told me, was unraveling. Vendors dropped out. Budgets exploded. Arguments between Maribel and Ethan became public, messy, impossible to hide. 3 wedding planners quit within 6 months. "She keeps saying everything has to be perfect," Isla told me over coffee one afternoon, "but she's exhausting everyone." There was more. My parents were struggling financially. Dad's accounting firm had lost clients. Mom's boutique was barely staying afloat. The connections they'd hoped to gain through Ethan's family never materialized. And still no one called me. I let the silence stretch. It was its own kind of power. 2 years passed. Maribel's wedding was scheduled for late September, almost exactly 2 years after mine. The venue was extravagant. The guest list enormous. The kind of event designed to remind everyone who mattered most. 3 weeks before the wedding, I did the last thing they'd expect. I hired an attorney. His name was Marcus Caldwell, and he specialized in inheritance disputes. I laid everything out on his desk: the video, the screenshots, the note, the will. He barely needed 10 minutes. "The necklace legally belongs to you," he said. "Your sister is in possession of stolen property." "I don't want it back quietly," I told him. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Then we time it." And for the first time since my wedding day, I smiled. By the time Marcus finished drafting the demand letter, I felt calm in a way I hadn't before. Not vindictive, not angry. Resolved. We sat across from each other in his office, sunlight slanting through the blinds as he slid the document toward me. 3 days before the wedding, he said. "That gives them enough time to panic, but not enough to hide." "Perfect," I replied. I didn't tell Lucas the exact timing at first, not because I didn't trust him, but because I needed this part to stay untouched by anyone else's emotions, even his. This wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming something that had been taken from me and daring my family to deny it out loud. In the meantime, life kept moving forward. Our townhouse filled with routines that felt grounding and real. Sunday mornings in the garden. Weeknight dinners where Lucas and I talked about anything except my family. We stopped bracing for the next phone call that never came. The absence no longer hurt. It confirmed. I grew into my work, into my confidence, into a version of myself that didn't flinch when someone else tried to dominate the room. Clients noticed. Colleagues did too. And slowly, inevitably, word reached my family. Isla told me my name had started coming up again. "At first it was subtle," she said. "Mom asking if you were doing okay. Dad wondering out loud if he should reach out." "Did they?" I asked. She shook her head. "No, they always stop themselves." Maribel, on the other hand, was unraveling. "She's obsessed with how everything looks," Isla said. "The dress, the flowers, the photos. She keeps talking about legacy." I almost laughed at that. Apparently, the necklace had become central to her vision. She planned to wear it for the ceremony, the reception, the photos, everywhere. It was the symbol she clung to when things went wrong, proof that she was still the chosen one. 2 weeks before the wedding, Marcus sent the letter. Formal, clear, unforgiving. It cited Great-Grandma Rose's will, outlined the legal ownership, demanded the immediate return of the necklace within 48 hours. It also warned of legal action. The response was immediate. My phone lit up like it had on my wedding night. Calls from numbers I hadn't heard from in years. My mother left 3 voicemails in a row. "Elara, we need to talk. This is a misunderstanding. You're taking this too far." Maribel sent a single text. "How could you do this to me right before my wedding?" I didn't reply. Instead, I made one more move. Through my work, I'd maintained connections with a few local society reporters, people who specialized in glossy weddings and polished lives. One of them, Avery Lane, had a reputation for uncovering the stories beneath the surface. We met for lunch. I told her everything. She asked questions, took notes, verified documents. When she left, she smiled thinly. "This is bigger than a necklace," she said. "It's about who gets erased." The morning of Maribel's wedding, 2 things happened at once. Marcus arrived at the resort with a sheriff's deputy to serve legal papers, and Avery's article went live. When family heirlooms become family feuds. According to Isla, who was texting me updates in real time, chaos erupted instantly. "They won't let Maribel wear the necklace," she wrote. "The hotel manager says it's a liability issue." Another message followed seconds later. "She's screaming, like full meltdown, mascara everywhere." Then, "Mom is arguing with the deputy. Dad looks like he wants to disappear." Maribel walked down the aisle without the necklace. Bare neckline, tight smile, eyes red with fury. Guests whispered, phones came out. The scandal overshadowed everything she'd tried so hard to curate. By the end of the night, the article had gone viral. Strangers messaged me with their own stories of favoritism and betrayal. People I barely remembered congratulated me for standing my ground. 2 days later, a courier delivered a small package to my door. Inside was the familiar jewelry box. This time it wasn't empty. The necklace lay inside, untouched. Perfect. Lucas fastened it around my neck that evening, his hand steady. "How does it feel?" he asked softly. "Like coming home," I said. And for the first time, I knew I meant it. The morning after the necklace came back, I woke up lighter. Not relieved. Relief implies the pain is still close enough to ache. This felt cleaner, quieter, final. Sunlight streamed through the bedroom windows, catching on the pearls resting on the dresser. For a moment, I simply watched them glow, remembering the weight of Great-Grandma Rose's hands, when she clasped it around my neck all those years ago. "This was never about jewelry," Lucas said from the doorway, reading my expression. "I know," I replied. "It was about being told over and over that what mattered to me didn't matter to them." We didn't hear from my family again that week, or the week after. The silence this time wasn't punishment, it was acceptance. Isla eventually told me what happened behind closed doors after the wedding. My parents were furious, not at Maribel, not at themselves, but at me. They framed the entire scandal as an act of cruelty, a betrayal I'd committed against family unity. Maribel refused to speak my name. She blamed me for ruining what she called the most important day of her life. Isla didn't argue. She just listened. And slowly, quietly, she pulled away too. I never asked her to choose, but choices have gravity. A month later, Avery's article was still circulating, shared in comment threads and forums full of strangers who recognized the story too well. People reached out to me, not to gossip, but to thank me, to say they felt seen. One message stayed with me. "You showed me that silence isn't weakness. It's permission to walk away." That felt like closure. I framed a still from the old Christmas video, Great-Grandma Rose smiling as she fastened the necklace, and hung it in our hallway. Not as a reminder of loss, but of inheritance in the truest sense, strength passed down, quietly and deliberately. Life didn't suddenly become perfect, but it became honest. Lucas and I built routines that felt sacred in their simplicity. We hosted friends who showed up without conditions. We celebrated small victories and let disappointments pass without spiraling. I stopped flinching when my phone buzzed, because it never buzzed with their names anymore. About 6 months later, I received one final letter. No return address, just my name, written carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "Alara, we never intended for things to go this far. We hope one day you'll understand we did what we thought was best for the family." I read it once. Then I folded it neatly and put it away. Understanding doesn't require reconciliation, and forgiveness doesn't demand access. That winter, Lucas surprised me. He planned a small celebration, just us, a few close friends, and Isla, on the anniversary of our wedding. No speeches, no expectations, just warmth and laughter and the quiet certainty that love, when chosen freely, is enough. As midnight approached, Lucas lifted his glass. "To Alara," he said, "for choosing herself." I wore the necklace that night, not as a symbol of victory, but as proof that I had finally stepped out of the shadow I'd been raised in. Some families are born, others are built. I chose mine, and I have never regretted it for a single day.